Well, good morning. I am back here in beautiful Ketchikan Bay, Alaska. And what we'll be shooting today is hopefully some otters. I just saw a flock of Rosy Finches fly over me. Hopefully some owls, great gray owl, maybe some northern hawk owls if we're lucky. And whatever else we can find here. Sun just rose up. I've got beautiful gold and blue water in here, some turquoise water, great reflections of the boats. So you should be able to get some really fun and interesting shots today. And what are we going to be shooting with today? Well, it's this guy right here. It's a Canon RF 200-800 lens, and I've had this lens for years. So this is going to be the 1 year long-term review of this lens. I'm going to tell you what I like about it, what I dislike about it, and just what this lens can do, just show you what it can do. So let's talk about it. So that's the way to start your day. Right off when I got down on these docks, an otter just came swimming right up to me. Just incredible. That's why I love coming down here on Ketchikan Bay where all these otters and birds and stuff are. So let's go out here and look for some more, and let's get set up on some to take some pictures with this 2-800. Show you what it does.
When the highs feel low and my weakness shows, you are always by my side. When I'm lost at sea, where the waves break free, you are there to be my guide. Ooh. Like your love's finding me, oh, you make me believe. In this life so brief, time feels like a thief, and the days keep slipping by. I would wait for you, prove my love is true, train the stars to shine your light. Ooh, when a road leads home, ooh, when the night finds the dawn, ooh, like you're always finding me, oh, you make
That's cool. Oh, sorry, I had an eagle out there. I had to take a picture of it real quick. It was sitting on a stump, then it flew off. Can't miss those opportunities. And those otters were so much fun in that harbor. And I didn't have perfect light, but I had good light down there. It wasn't coming right on the face, those otters coming off to the side, but what I was really looking for was reflections. So a couple things I want to note about that footage if you go back and look at it. One is the reflections in the water. So when I'm down low, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for those reflections in the water, different colors of water. So what I did with those otters was I could see I had some boats that were real blue with the reflections. So I set myself up where those otters were going to move through that blue water, and that's what I was setting myself up for. A lot of times to me, I think it's more important what's behind a subject, what's around a subject than the subject itself, what makes it interesting, what's make a shot kind of fun and cool. The second thing in that video that I'd like you to take notice of was the very first video. You'll see inversion in there. You'll see the wobble, and that is that temperature inversion from the water to the air, because the water is warmer than the air is, so that's why we're getting that little heat wave or temperature inversions, things like that. And at the distance I was shooting with this lens, it's going to be good clear on those otters, but if it had been probably another 10 feet back, 15 feet back, it would have started interfering with the image. But at that distance, it worked really good, so that's why you need to know your distance and what's going on with the air and the temperature and the atmospheric conditions around you, light and things like that. Back to this lens. Enough about those otters. They were so fun to shoot though. Specifics of this lens we're going to talk about now is things that I'm indifferent to. They're just what the lens is. A lot of you probably know what this lens is, what it consists of, its weight, all those kind of things. But there's people out there, I'm sure, that don't. So we'll go through those real quick. First thing is the weight of this lens. It was 4.5 pounds. And there's two camps with that. Some people say that's too heavy. Some people say it's not too bad. I'm in the camp that says it's not too bad. And why is that? Well, this is non-L glass, and all your non-pro lenses from Canon, Nikon, and Sony are all about the same weight. So the non-G on Sony, the non-S on Nikon, and the non-L on Canon, all those lenses, the 2 to 600, the 180 to 600, and this 2 to 800, they're all about the same weight. They go from 4.3 on the Nikon to 4.5 on the Canon to 4.7, I believe it's on the Sony. So this guy sits right in the middle. The next thing on this lens, it is a telescoping lens. It does barrel out. Now, a lot of people will talk about, oh, this is a long throw. Well, you know what? It's 200, 800. It better be a long throw. But this lens, if we do it, so I'll just put my thumb on the left side to see how far it goes over, before it goes up. Guess what? That is not even a third of a turn in there. So it's not that far. I mean, it's far, but it's not that far. When you're hand holding it, I don't, people are going crazy about having to do that, but you do have to turn this a little bit with that hand. But most of the times I'm out here at 500 or 600 anyway, so when I'm zooming in a little farther, it's not that big a deal to me. It's a long throw, but it's not that bad on the throw. The next thing about this lens is the length of it. It is, let me get my notes here so I can say this right, it is 12.4 inches from the mount to the end of the lens hood, to where the lens hood sits. And that's in its collapsed state. So you can put it in some smaller bags and things like that. It fits very easily in all my bags. It's shorter than my 500 f4. It's almost the same length as 18600. It's a little bit shorter, a little bit. The 2600 is about the same length as this guy, touch shorter, not by much. But with it fully extended all the way out, she does get to be a long boy. She is 16 inches from mount to the lens hood. That's pretty long. But again, you're going 800 millimeters here. That's why that is. Next thing you've got on here, you have switches. Now I have a neoprene covering on mine, so I can't show you switch. I may pull some pictures up here to show you what the switches look like on the side. And do get these neoprene covers for your lenses, your long wildlife lenses. I can't stress that enough, because when you are sitting down on stuff like this, you are constantly banging it, rubbing it, barely touching it. If I had this exposed, even when I sit right there, I would have maybe scuffed that lens cap up a little bit for sure. It just keeps you from dings and rocks and things like that. These neoprene covers, the skins are okay, but the skins are so thin, they don't give you any cushion on those rocks or things when you kind of set it and bump it a little bit like that. but they're okay. But these neoprene covers so much better. The two that I've liked so far is, of course, the Lens Coat's my favorite. The second closest that I like is the Roland Pros. Roland Pros are a little thinner than the neoprene covers for the Lens Pros, but I like the Lens Coat's a little bit better. So back to the switches on this guy. So you have an autofocus, manual focus, control ring switch. What that is it either turns the autofocus off and on to manual focus, turns autofocus on, or sets control ring. So you can use the control ring back here for whatever function. Let's say you want to set aperture on the control ring. You can select that to C and the control in the middle, and then slide it down there, and that is the aperture on the control ring. And the next switch you have on here is your stabilizer on and off. So I leave the stabilizer on all the time. I don't know why you would turn it off, but that's what you have there. You also have a function button on here you can set up inside the camera to whatever you're going to set it to. So that's pretty much the controls. You do have a tighten thing to keep the, how tight do you want this, and that's for lens creep. I leave it the max tightness. I don't have a problem with it. Another featureless lens is the lens collar. The lens collar does not come off. We'll get to that on the likes and dislikes later. And also it has places to put your lens straps on the lens, which is awesome. I wish the 1-500 had that. It did not have that, which was one of the drawbacks of that lens to me, is being able to put your lens strap on your lens as opposed to the body. I'd rather have that weight here than I want the weight there. It's easier to carry, and it's better on the lens mount if it's attached to the lens. It has a 95mm filter thread in the front, so you can put that on there, which is really nice. If you need to put an ND filter, a polarizer, things like that, you can screw those on there to a 95mm thread filter. Minimum focus of this guy. So this guy at minimum focus at 200 is 2.6 feet, which means you can shoot right at your feet and shoot. So I can shoot this grass down here and get a macro shot of something that's grass or a rock or things like that. There's a bug down there. Fully extended. This is 9.2 feet minimum focus. Yes, that's long, but this is 800mm too. So apertures on this guy, it does start at 6.3 and goes out to f9. A lot of people talk about this being a slow lens. Well, yes and no. It is slow in the fact that it's f9, but all the other lenses that get out there in this price range, this type of lens, this size of a lens, they are at the same aperture or worse at that 800, 700mm thing. So the 6.3 lenses that you have out there, like the Nikon, the Sony, the Tamrons, things like that, once you stick a teleconverter on those, they're at f9 also. Now with those lenses, you've added teleconverter, which means you degrade your image quality just a tear. This one doesn't have it at 800, so you don't have to deal with that degradation of image due to putting a teleconverter on. If you use the 1-500, the L glass, which you got to step up in price for, right? That one is going to be 700mm at f10. So, and it's only 350 to 700. Really, you can't go all the way back. So this guy, as far as teleconverters, will accept teleconverters all the way from 200 to 800. It will do the full range. The 1-500, you can only go 350 to 700. And you're at f10, so now you're at a not as good compression and a higher aperture on there, so your depth of field is going to be a little bigger than it would be on this guy. That's why I'm not as concerned about f9 at 800, right? Because you got to remember, at 800 f9, that depth of field is getting very, very narrow. That's that about the aperture. We'll talk about dislikes and likes about that more later. Now that's pretty much everything about this lens, kind of what this lens is. We're going to get into IQ, what I like and dislike about this lens here in just a second. Earlier today, the Otters I shot was in pretty good light, good reflection, not any type of weather other than the water causing a little bit of weather change and that kind of stuff, as far as atmospheric. But I want to take you back to yesterday when I had bad weather and low light conditions at this lens I shot it in. And my conditions were, it rained all day. You'll see in some of these shots in the video, you'll see the little rain streaks going by the owl. Yes, we've got another northern hawk owl. Found another one up here. Been so lucky with northern hawk owls. We're going to go to yesterday. Where you see these shots in the rain. These shots are in low light. Some of these shots are 4,000, 5,000, 8,000, and 10,000 ISO. So you can see how this guy handles as far as video and stills in that light. So watch this bit of video with the hawk owl, other animals I got, finches, things like that. Enjoy that, and after that we'll talk about the image quality, my likes and dislikes in this lens. I'll talk to you here in a minute.
You tell me you're scared. You tell me you're you're weak, but I know you're stronger than what you think. And I know it's hard. Yeah, I know it's rough, but we'll make it through, and I'll back you up. Wherever you're going, I'm going to. I'll follow you through the black and the blue. Whatever the mountain, we'll climb to the next. Honey, I'm with you through life and to death. You tell me you're nervous. You say you're afraid. I wish you could see that. I think you're brave, and if it all falls, if it all breaks, I'll still be here. We'll fix these mistakes. Wherever you're going, I'm going to. I'll follow you through the black and the blue. Whatever the mountain, we'll climb to the next. Honey, I'm with you through life and to death. Wherever you're going, I'm going to. I'll follow you through the black and the blue. Whatever the mountain, we'll climb to the next. Honey, I'm with you through life and to death. Honey, I'm with you through life and
Well, that was fun yesterday. It was miserable shooting conditions. It was cold and wet, and it shot a lot of those animals right in the dark and had to really crank that ISO on these things, even shooting those finches back in the tree and then shooting that owl. And to be honest with you, that owl shot with the mountains behind it, moving that bouquet behind it, that last shot, that's one of my favorite shots so far of the Northern Hawk Owl, besides some of the flight shots I've gotten to one this winter. But I really loved it. And I got it with this combo, the Far 5 Mark II and the 2-800 lens. I had no problem getting those shots. But let's talk about IQ on this lens real quick. Now, I've got all my notes over here, so if I look down every once in a while, I'm looking at my notes to what I want to talk about here. So let's get right into this guy about sharpness of this lens. And I want to talk about sharpness real fast. All these lenses we've got to this day, these mirrorless lenses, are sharp. All of them. The 1 to 400, this 2 to 800, the 1 to 500, all the way up to the primes. All these new lenses coming out are extremely sharp. Some of the lenses are a little sharper than I want. I have to back off the texture and clarity on a lot of shots sometimes, but all these lenses are sharp. If we get a shot as photographers and it's not sharp, 99.9% of the time, it's our fault. We're the ones that cause the thing to not be sharp. Either we got the autofocus in a bad situation, we had the wrong exposure settings, we didn't get it in focus, a lot of things, the atmospheric conditions, all these things are going to cause that. Sharpness is one piece of the quality about image quality, right? So all these lenses are sharp. Somebody says a lens is not sharp anymore, even the 1-400. This lens, one of the Nikon lenses, the 28-400, another fantastic lens out there made by Nikon, you know, kind of like the 2800, kind of innovative, different types of lenses. They're all sharp. They're very, very sharp. And if the shot is not sharp, it's our fault, usually. These cameras and lenses are going to get it right if we get it right. I took some shots here of the side of a building here in Homer to show you what this looks like. So this lens is the sharpest at 500 and 600 millimeters. That's the tack sharpest it's going to be as far as sharpness, you know, pinpoint test. And you can see that here. These look pretty good at 500-600. We take that same thing to 800, and what I did was I shot them at 800, walk forward at 600 to get about the same size of the frame, and then same to walk forward again for the 500. So my distance subject was a little different, but I'm trying to keep that the same size in the frame, same exposure on all the images. And they're all at f9, 500, 600, and 800. And what you can see here, if you look at 800, it is a little, quote, softer than at 600 and 500. By just a hair. If you really look at these letters in the center, they're all tack sharp. When you get towards the edges, that's where it starts to fall off, just a smidge. I mean, you have to really pixel peep into 100% or farther to start seeing any type of difference in that sharpness there. So this lens is nice and good sharpness at all those 500 to 800 in that range. That's really where I use this lens, 400, 800. There are times I have to pull back in more, but anything lower than that is pretty sharp too. But this lens is very sharp at all those ranges. You can see here, you look at the center, look at those letters. The edges of them are nice and crispy. If you look out at the edges, everything looks nice and crispy there. What I'll notice in the edges is you'll see a little difference in the contrast, just a touch there. You lose a little bit of contrast. Other than that, it's pretty similar. So as far as fringing and chromatic aberration, it's really handled really well in this lens. I almost see none of it. When I looked at stuff at the edge of a white and a dark on the edges, I don't see the purple, the blues, or the things like that I would expect to see on a lens that really was really bad. Not much at all. Even shooting into the sun, it works really well. I've got a couple of those owl shots there in that last one where I'm shooting directly into the sun. That owl, the sun's right behind that owl, and it came out really well. You are going to get some halation behind it, but we expected, but it handles it really well. You don't have a lot of blooming too bad when you're shooting directly in the sun. As far as color rendition on this lens, it's very, very good. It's right there with its counterparts, the Nikon, the Sony, and the 1-500 lens. It's kind of the ones I compare this guy to. But the color rendition on this guy I've been very, very happy with it. Don't have to do a lot of extra editing on it when you take a shot with this. Some other lenses will be flatter on the colors or too bright on the colors, but this one sits right there in that sweet spot, I believe, and for the way I look at it. Now, one thing is different in this lens versus its counterparts, the L series lenses, things like that, the higher price lenses, is the T value on this. And the T value is how much light actually gets into the barrel of the lens to the sensor. And it is a little less than your L series lenses. As far as the 1-500 T value versus this one, you look at the images, you'll notice when a lot of people compare them, they're talking about sharpness. Well, if you look at the two images, you actually see it's just a little bit brighter on the 1-500 than it is the 2-800, and that's that T value. And it makes sense why that T value is a little less, because it has a not much larger opening at the front, and it has farther to go back to get to the sensor. That's why that T value is a little bit different. So it is a little less. So if you wanted to look at the two images close to each other, you'd probably want to shoot this one, bring it up just a little bit of exposure, bring your eyes up one click, and then probably the images will be pretty close to 1-500 in this one as far as T value and that light that's in there. So that's just something to know that does exist. It doesn't hurt your images, doesn't bother them one bit, but that difference is there. Now, I want to talk about IQ on longer lenses like these out at 800. A lot of us have shot 500, 600 millimeter lenses, but very few of us shoot in that 600, 800, or when you use teleconverters. So this comes into play with this lens, plus lenses you've dropped a teleconverter on to get out there past 500, 600 millimeters. And that is, no matter what you're shooting, on the best atmospheric condition days, anything past 75 yards, you're not going to get a ton of detail unless it's something massive. Then you're not going to get small details. And the farther you're away from different types of subjects, let's say a small bird, you know, you can only be 10 yards, 15 yards, maybe. I'm just throwing numbers out there. A fox, maybe past 30, 40 yards. It may not be any good on a given day. But you also have to learn on a given day, what is your atmospheric conditions like? Like I've got a lot of ice in the air right now. That affects the images also. And rain, you know, different things like that, melt, heat, there's all kinds of things can affect your image from where you're at. So a lot of people aren't used to shooting in that range, and they think just because the image gets larger in the frame, then it's going to be acceptable. Or it's the same size you were before when you cropped in and looked good, but with this longer lens, you're actually farther away from that bird. You may be 20, 30 yards farther away from that bird than you were at 500 millimeters, but it looks the same size of frame. And you crop down, you start seeing problems. And when you start cropping, then you start seeing problems in your image. Any imperfections in the image, once you start cropping, you're losing megapixels, and you're going to see the things that were going wrong with it are going to be exponentially larger. Another thing that when you're shooting at 800 millimeters versus 500 or 600 millimeters is you're going to have more motion blur. So a small move with your camera is a large movement where the focal point is. So itty bitty movements you have, your own shake, things like that, the wind bumping, or even the animal moving, is going to have more motion blur. So you have to learn how you got to shoot a faster. So know that shooting this lens versus shooting 500, 600, that extra 200 millimeters is a lot. I remember going from a 1 to 400 to shooting 500 millimeter. I felt like I had a lot more reach, you know, or a lot more magnification. So don't think of this as being able to shoot farther away from you, like something, you think of it as shooting something at an acceptable distance for image quality to enlarge it in the frame. It's kind of magnification, but it's really, if I could shoot with the 500 a bird on the table down here by me and get good quality, I'll get good quality with this. But if I've got the bird sitting at the next table over where I shoot with the 500 millimeter and I don't get image quality, just because I pick up the 800 millimeter and it's large enough in frame, I'm still not going to have good quality because it's just too far away. So remember that. All those little factors go into image quality. So at the end of the day, I guess my biggest synopsis about shooting these longer ranges for image quality is if you take a crap shot, means something's too far away or the atmosphere's too much or you've got, you know, too slow shutter speed, don't have good contrast in your exposure, you're going to get a crap result. So that's really what it is. Take a crap shot, get a crap image. I do it all the time. I take one, I take the chance on it, and I get it back letters. Yeah, that was bad. It ended up being bad. So that's a little bit about image quality on these longer lenses. So now let's get into my likes and dislikes on this lens, what you guys want to know. We'll do the likes first, we'll do the dislikes secondly. So the first like on this guy is it doesn't have lens creep. So when I sit here and shake it, this doesn't start pulling out on that. Even if I set it to the loosest setting, it's still pretty good about not coming out. And another thing I really like with this lens is that 500 or 600 out there to 800 millimeters makes it so much better. And at f9, the bokeh and the blur you get out of this guy due to that extra reach is what I really, really love about this lens. This lens goes out with me a lot when I'm out shooting the Canon cameras because I get that extra magnification on a bird. I can start shooting small birds and not have to crop in or have to really work myself much more closer than I probably can on some birds. So shooting these finches here, like you saw that video, it completely filled the whole frame up. I could have shot it with the 500 and got it decent in the frame, but be able to get that much more magnification at that really close distance, you know, I was probably 10 yards or less from that guy, just made it so much better. The image stabilization on this guy, oh, it's another good like. The image stabilization on this guy is fantastic, especially this Firefly Mark II. It's not Nikon, but it is so close to that Nikon level. When you're holding it there, you'll see it kind of moving a little bit, but once you hit that record button, whew, she just settles down and stays on that subject. Now, trying to keep yourself steady is another issue altogether, but it is real. This is a great video handheld thing, and I handhold this all the time. I very seldom use it on a gimbal. I can, but I just haven't really done it much this year. This is so easy to handhold this guy and shoot video. And getting this, down in those low shutter speeds, because it's, shooting f9, you got to figure out how to get light on these days like yesterday. I had to really think how to get light. And the only thing you can do is drop your shutter speed, increase your ISO. But what's really good about this guy is you can see some of even these owl shots and the finch shots, some other videos, I'm getting way down there a lot slower than I normally would shoot a finch and getting good shots with it, which is really nice. But that's due to that image stabilization. I really like the image stabilization of this lens compared to especially the R5 Mark II. Autofocus on this lens is very, very good. That motor, like we said earlier, really handles it well. So I don't have any problems there. The autofocus snappy using this lens. I had no problems with autofocus this lens, and especially with this R5 Mark II again, because the autofocus is so much better. Most of the time, yeah, you compare this with the R7 to get even more magnification, but the autofocus, of course, on this R5 Mark II is so much better, and then no rolling shutter on this guy. But with the R7, this takes great images too. Another thing about this, I didn't mention, the image quality was a couple of the best shots, my favorite shots that I took last year were taken with this lens, and actually the Canon R7. And funny enough, it was the very first day I had this lens that I shot it, and it was those ones in the snow. Stormy, that fox in the snow with the white eye just ahead. That's probably my favorite image I took. And then the two wolves stacked up. They were taken with this lens with the R7. They were extremely sharp, and there was some hard conditions to shoot in. With all that big snow coming down, hard to focus through it, and then getting focused on that bird and all that fog and haze in the air from all that snow, those shots were just beautiful, incredible. I've taken some amazing shots with this lens. Just incredible shots. I've been really happy when I got with this lens. And really at the distance I was for those fox and that wolves and stuff, this really was not the lens for the job, but I was reviewing this lens first day, and that's the rig I had, the R7 and this. That's what I had in the truck. That's what I used. And it came out great, fantastic. So great, love that. This is my favorite shot came off this lens. Another plus this guy is the weather sealing. We talked a little bit about it earlier, but the weather sealing on this guy is pretty good. I haven't had any problem with the moisture in this guy, so if you do get it out in weather, you know, you're going to be okay. But if it's bad, like I said earlier, put it in there. But it's really good for the weather sealing. I think that's another plus on this guy, that it is weather sealed enough to get by an incremental day, not a horrible day as far as weather. Now, it's not an L lens, like we said earlier, but to me, L doesn't mean as much lower than the big primes in the Canon world anymore. Not that the L lenses have gotten worse in quality, it's just that these non-L glasses have come up in quality, and they're just getting a lot more features and weather sealing and things like this, these lower level lenses versus the L lenses. So it's getting, that gap is getting a lot more narrow as far as the functionality goes. So that's what I mean by L's. It doesn't mean as much as it used to as far as these lenses go. Okay, dislikes on this lens. Let's get into this real quick. The very first thing is the lens hood. The lens hood is pretty flimsy. Now, before I put the neoprene cover on it, this guy popped off. You'd bump it on something, go flying off all the time, drove me nuts. Once I put this neoprene cover on it though, it seems to hang on a lot better. I don't know if it's because this meets it and kind of keeps it from bouncing off, but that is not very good. What I need to do is replace this with a Zemlin. Zemlin is what I use on my other lenses, replacement hoods. I need to order one. They do make one, and go check them out, Zemlin. I don't have any relation with those guys as far as any type of cooperation or anything. I just love their work. Just like Lenscoat. I don't have any cooperation with any company whatsoever as far as what I have. I buy everything, but the Zemlin hood's what I need to put on here to be a little more durable, because this is, I mean, you can just squeeze it, see it flex. But I didn't like that. Next thing I don't like is this lens foot. The lens foot does not come off. Why is that bad? Well, first thing is, Canon did not put an Arca Swiss on this lens foot. You have to put a plate on here, which means it's heavier, more cumbersome. Another thing you got to put on here. And that's kind of annoying if you're going to use it on a gimbal. And if you want to take it off, like a lot of folks do, because they don't want to have a lens foot, because they don't, the way they carry it. I like lens foot because it has a place to put my hand, but you can't take it off. And that is a pain in the butt. So Canon, come on. Well, why do we do that? So you can't take and replace this with one with the integrated foot like you can with 500 f4s or some other lenses. You have to just screw one on the bottom, and there you go. Extra weight, extra headache. But yeah, come on, Canon, get that on there for us. The next thing is external zoom. Now, it's not bad. Like I said, it's third of a throw. It is a longer throw. But again, it's the price and what it is. But Nikon was able to put a 180-600 with internal zoom. And I'd rather have internal zoom. Now, the lens would have been longer. I don't care. It's just, balancing on gimbals, right? If I want to shoot this on a gimbal, I have to either go extend it out and balance it and shoot it, you know, just within 100 millimeters or so it stays balanced on the gimbal, or I've got to shoot it where I'm going to shoot it at and set up the balance on it. And that kind of makes it hard. I haven't really shot on a gimbal, like I said earlier, yet, but when I get back to shooting turns and stuff, where it's repeatable areas where they're flying, I use gimbals a lot. And if I'm shooting birds that are diving, kingfishers, I know they're going to dive from a certain spot, then I'm on a gimbal, and I don't want to have to deal with, you know, being here at 200, put it out at, you know, 800, and the thing goes, you know, one way or the other, dives, you know, towards the nose or towards the back. And that's a problem there as far as telescoping, and then you can suck in moisture and dust in these too, but I haven't seen it with mine yet, but it has happened with other lenses that are external zooming. Also, back to the collar, I forgot, there's no discernible click when you get back to center. When you get that thing back to center, it doesn't click, or you can't feel it. You have to look, and I've got a cover on mine so I can't see it, so I've got to kind of just judge it, which I got it off. I'm not quite centered, but now I am. Another thing that it's not really a dislike, it is a hindrance, so let's put it that way, is the f-stop. I keep taking this glove on and off because my hand gets cold and I got to mess with the computer to look at my notes, but I'll freeze my hand off here. It is about 26 degrees Fahrenheit today, which is what, -5 Celsius for you guys that do Celsius? But anyway, the f-stop of the lens, f9, yes, that is a hindrance and also a plus, right? So at 800 f9, like we talked about, your depth of field is very small, but on a day where you don't have as much light, things like that, and you're going to shoot something faster, or it's just that dark, f9 is going to be hard to get enough light to get a good image. So f9 is a little bit of a lack of a hindrance, but you can get around it. As far as the bokeh and compression and all that stuff, depth of field, 800 f9 is just amazing. But when you're shooting in low light areas, like, you're not going to take this in and shoot sports basketball inside. You could, but it's going to be some super high ISO, and probably your shutter speeds aren't going to be fast enough. If you shoot in the rainforest, a lot of overcast, canopy on top of low light that day, it's going to be rough. If I'm shooting out here at dusk, like I did with those owls, you can get the shots, but you're going to have to push that ISO way up. You're going to have to think of ways to get light. So that's another hindrance, or little, not a dislike, but a hindrance, I guess I would say, about the f-stop. But with that being said, it's not really any different than shooting it if you're trying to get 700, 800 millimeters, as if you're shooting the 1-500 or shooting those 6.3 lenses at 600. You're really the same problem if you're wanting to shoot that focal range. If you're shooting back at 500 f8, you got to remember the 1-500 7.1 is less than a third of stop, so you're not really gaining much. Now that T value helps a little bit with the 1-500 versus this one at 500, but really, until you get into those f4s, 2.8s, you're going to have that problem with all these lenses when you're getting out at 600, 800 millimeters, using TCs and things like that. So that's my dislikes on this lens. Not a whole lot. They're really kind of superficial as far as getting the image and sharpness of the image. There's no dislikes there. The likes are kind of outweigh those. But the final synopsis, the final conclusion on this lens after using it for a year, and I've used it hard for a year. I've used it a lot this last year. I've had a lot of friends use the lens, and everybody that's used it has liked it quite a bit, and I like this lens. This lens stays in my bag. It is a very good lens. It is a sharp lens. It can get you some really crazy images, as you've seen even from the videos I have here, and the past videos that I shot back here with this lens and this combo, especially the R5 Mark II. This is a great combo right here. I love it. To be able to enlarge those small birds up more, to get some of those good compression shots on that bird. And, you know, I know if I can get close to that bird, I shoot at 800 f9, that background's going to be beautiful. It's not going to be my f4 beautiful, because those glass and those is different. Those big primes versus these other lenses, these non-big prime lenses. But this is a fantastic lens. I love it. It's a great lens. Again, you're shooting at dusk, you're shooting at really bad low light, and you got something fast, yeah, you're going to have some struggles there. But you're going to have those struggles until you get up with those f4s, those 2.8 type lenses, those really fast lenses, those real wide open apertures. This lens for the price has been fantastic for me. I love it. It's a good lens. I'm glad I bought it. I'm glad I have it, and it's, like I said, it's used in my arsenal every day when I go out and shoot. So hope you guys found this useful and what my thoughts on this lens are after using it for a year. And as always, guys, especially right here in Alaska, get outside and go run that shutter, because God, look at that. Beautiful. Take care.